Welcome to the very first Women in Technology event for IT services at the University of Tasmania. As a reflection of this institution's recognition of the deep history and culture of this island, the University of Tasmania wishes to acknowledge the Mahinana people, the traditional owners and custodians of the land upon which this campus is built. My name is Gillian Vosper. I am the Senior Executive Officer in the Office of the CIO here at the University. Thank you for coming along tonight. Just some housekeeping before we start. The toilets are located in the foyer where we came in. Emergency exits are again that way, and there's also another one here behind me on my left. I also need to let you know that this event is being filmed and will be available on the UTAS website in the next few days. We will start this evening hearing from our keynote speaker, Samantha Krajina. Samantha is a serial entrepreneur, having started and invested into a number of businesses. However, she is most recognised for her work in and the founding of Geelong Women in Business. Previously an accountant, Samantha has a comprehensive knowledge of business as a whole, from accounting, PR and marketing, to digital, events and more. She has been sponsored by Australia Post to be a mentor for their Pitch Fest. She is also a mentor for the Geelong Spark Pitch Fest, and she regularly mentors women in tech startups. She has a strong passion to support and grow women in business and continues to invest in startups. Samantha will be followed by Dr. Jack Charlesworth, Senior Research Fellow, Computational Genomics at the Menzies Institute for Medical Research. Jack runs a computational genomics research group and is currently hunting for genetic variation underpinning neurological disorders. She is a statistical geneticist with a background in molecular biology, allowing her to occupy the interface between data analytics and biological interpretation. She also manages the computational infrastructure for genomics research at Menzies and provides bioinformatics training and support. Really interesting job. Janelle Tamlyn will be our final speaker. She is the Associate Director for Client Support and Service Improvements in IT Services at the University. She leads the service delivery team. Janelle has worked in roles across IT Services and the Vice-Chancellor's Division in project management and training and senior administrative roles. Following the presentations, there will be an opportunity to ask questions. Our panel will include Samantha, Jack and Janelle, and also Marianne Herbert. Marianne is currently a program manager with IT Services and has a wealth of experience across IT, especially in project and program management. Jeff Murray, Chief Information Officer, will facilitate the discussion. So, enough from me, let's get started. Please welcome Samantha Krajina.
Thank you very much. That was a wonderful introduction of me. That's all I've got for tonight, so thank you so much. See you later. No, it is an absolute pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm always so excited when I see a number of men come to support women in whatever movement they choose, and what a better way than to start with technology. So, as Gillian said, my background is in accounting. I started accounting, I became a chartered accountant, and I loved it. I was one of the people that really dug numbers. Having numerical OCD always helps, but I liked the corporate world. I liked structure. I enjoyed working with my leaders. I had mentors. I had my co-workers. We had wonderful work events and great clients. And then I made the move into small business. Little did I know that I was going to feel so alone running a small business. I was under the illusion that running a small business would give me more time. Well, just let me let you know that that's wrong. It would give me more freedom. I would, be surrounded by other small businesses and clients and people. But it was a really isolating move, moving from corporate to small business. Not only that, in the corporate world, you have your departments. So you have your IT department, you have your sales, you have your marketing. You've got all the experts in the right spot to be able to do all of the things that you may not be good at or that are required in a business. And when you move into small business, guess what? You become everything. You wear all of the hats. So for me, on top of my products and services that I was running in my business, I became HR, I became business development, I became sales, which at the start I was terrible at, and IT. Now, I was saying earlier, like in the office, we used to joke that I was a human virus for anything technological in the office. I'd have to look at the printer and it would break. So the IT side of things was quite daunting. So to cure that loneliness that I felt in small business, I do what most of us do, and I looked for people to relate to. I looked for other small businesses. So I joined a couple of networking groups and associations in Melbourne, and I found myself on the board of a number of women's networks, and that's really where I felt at home. People often will ask me, why women in business? Why not people? And for me, it's where I found that I could relate. And as humans, we walk the planet with one job. We walk the planet looking for people to relate to. So you know when you meet someone and it's all going really well, I'm not talking about dating, and you feel, all we're talking about dating, and you feel like you've known them for 10 years, you like the same things, you dislike the same things, you have similar opinions. Well, what you actually like is you in them. And that's really cool because we are amazing human beings. And when we find another amazing human being, it's quite extraordinary. So what I found is that I was relating to women, mums in particular. So running a small business and being a mum, there's no maternity leave. There's no maternity leave. I think after my first child, I went back to work 3 weeks after giving birth. That may be because I'm a superhuman, but it's there's no maternity leave. So I really looked for those to relate to. Being in the position I was with Geelong Women, I was able to make that easy for women. So we're very strict on our culture that if we put on an event for women and we get 90 people register and 10 people show up, that's okay. Because I know for me, I write for a number of magazines. If I have a deadline, I'm not going to an event. If my children are sick, I'm not going to be able to make it to an event. If my husband might be running late, it's real life. And it's real life as a mum, and that's okay. So it doesn't matter how many times you come to events, how long in between, that's okay. And when you're able to provide a platform for women to be human and to be okay, amazing things happen. And I really credit the success to Geelong Women for driving that culture. And that's something that I'm really passionate about, introducing women to IT, to the digital space, to make it okay that, you know, if you haven't got this booklet, please pick it up, because this is the stories of women who have accidentally found themselves in the tech space and weren't okay at the start. Yes, Gillian, I'm looking at you. Weren't okay at the start, weren't comfortable, because really with technology, you know you're in or you're out. It's either you get it or it's too hard. That's the stigma we work with, right? So for me, I want to make technology accessible, the industry. Right? We want people to come through our universities and learn about it. We want to hire them within our organisations. And really, I shouldn't have played with that booklet because I played with my slides. Really, it is the greatest time in history to be a woman in business. Let's be honest. It is the greatest time in the history of professional careers to be a woman in the workplace. And I want to empower those women to take that opportunity and do incredible things. When you think about women in the workplace, we we have a very particular set of skills, unique to us, right? So we're born with them. We kind of nurture them, and they grow after having children, I think. Hands up in the room, those who are mothers. Yes, welcome. Keep your hand up if you know a mum or if you have a mum. And when I'm talking if you're a mum, I'm talking about the human kind, I'm talking about the fur baby kind. We all know mums, right? They're pretty amazing, yeah? So have a think about some of the skills you develop as a mother. Have a think, because I'm going to ask you. I'll start you off. Think about negotiation. Have you ever seen a mother negotiate bedtime with a toddler? Because I can Snapchat you a video of that tomorrow night when I get home. Or negotiating a curfew with a teenager. I have learnt to negotiate like a pro having children. Think about creativity. I have become and I'm talking about myself, look how amazing I am. I've become a master of hiding vegetables in food with a fussy eating toddler. What other skills do we develop as a mum? Anyone else got one? Patience. Can I get an amen? I thought I was patient before children, and I'm happily stand in front of you and say I've been proven wrong. Multitasking, that's the number one on my list. Multi-skilling, do you reckon that's a good quality to have in the workplace? Yes. What else? Organisation, perfect. Time management. I very rarely get my kids to kinder on time, so I haven't perfected it yet. But time management with doctor's appointments and getting kids to school and to sport. The list goes on. And the really great companies, the really great organisations recognise this, that these translate into the workplace. And I would hire a mother any day of the week because I want access to those skills. Is everybody familiar with the SWOT analysis? You know, you got your strengths, your weaknesses. I always find it funny when we get to weaknesses, and generally in corporate, well, my experience is they say, look at your weaknesses, yeah? Focus on them. How can we improve your weaknesses? And I kind of think, I don't want to improve my I don't want strong weaknesses. I want strong strengths, right? I want to identify my strengths and see what I can do with them. I had a uni student say to me a saying. They said, like a boss. Has anybody heard that? Yeah? Do you know I've got a bit of a problem with that saying? Because think about your boss. Think about you as a boss, or think about a boss you've had, right? So you do something amazing and they say, like a boss. No, like a boss, get someone else to do it, right? That's all we should be doing with our weaknesses. Delegation. So as women, we have recognised those strengths, and we've got some pretty amazing ones. But what's happened is generally, and I will speak very generally, is that we've moved into, and we've always been in traditional careers that play to those strengths. Caregiving careers, people-oriented careers, creative careers. So you can think of things like hospitality or childcare or teaching, which has always seemed to be the natural progression that women move into. And I don't particularly think it's got anything to do with a hierarchy. I think we're playing to some pretty amazing strengths. But that's not to say that those strengths can't be translated to any other industry. And I think that that's something that we need to shine a light on, to open our minds up to what else we can do with these amazing skills. When you think of technology, do you think of a people-oriented industry? We are becoming it, but not really. Technology used to be, I know I'm wearing glasses, but it used to be, techie, nerdy. When you think of tech, it's got that stigma. like AI. We've got a woman who's part of one of the programs I work with back at Geelong, who's in artificial intelligence and wears the computer boards on her earrings. Now that's a serious techie. The way that I see women moving into technology is like a really nice, clean white wall and just grabbing a handful of colour and just throwing it at it. Imagine the amount of innovation, imagine the amount of creativity and development that we can inject into the industry, that we have already injected into the industry. And I think that that's really important. For me, in a small business, IT was always a problem. And not because of my history breaking the printer, but because of my lack of knowledge. So with businesses, every single business is solving somebody's problem. You can look at the absolute basics of the clearest problems, like a doctor. It's pretty clear what problem doctors solve, right? Think about a business that doesn't solve a problem. Is my number still up there? I want to know which it is. Because think about Christian Louboutin. Now, for all the unfashionistas like me, that guy sells shoes. Now, what problem is he solving? That Beverly Hill housewife that does not have the latest red soles has a big problem in her social circle. So as ridiculous, as humane, as crazy as it is, every single business is solving somebody's problem. And I'm not wearing Christian Louboutin shoes. And for me, in my business, IT was a problem. So when I first opened the doors to my relationship specialty firm on St Kilda Road, I remember sitting at my desk and I put a nice sign on the door. I got customised stationery, had all my programs ready to go, and I remember picking up the receiver of the phone to check the dial tone because why isn't anybody calling me? I've got a business. And then I learnt about marketing. Then I learnt about creating an online presence, also known as website. Then I learnt about getting found, my website getting found with SEO. And as a relationship therapy business, the website developers that I was working with could never really hit the mark and reflect us in a website. So they were really black and white. They were functional. They navigated wonderful. They had all the whiz-bang widgets. Good start. But it didn't reflect our business. When you're working in that space, you want to engage with people emotionally, right? So when we're looking to engage with a relationship specialist, it's an emotional decision. And so I am the audience of web developers. But unfortunately, in my case, the female audience was not represented in the industry. And I worked with a number of IT companies, so much so that I think I cried more over websites, email hosting, graphic design than I have all of the tears in my entire life. So I invested into a group of young uni students that just had the world at their feet. And they were superstars. And I was able to teach them how emotional buyers need to be engaged with on a website. So we started working with businesses like gyms. When you go to purchase a gym membership, it's an emotional decision. And they did an amazing job. But it really highlighted to me that we were very unrepresented in the industry. And if I'm having this problem, so is a number of other women in business. For this reason, navigating through SEO, when somebody first said to me the word SERP, I thought they were talking about a snake. So even the basic language of IT, the digital space in business is so important to be able to communicate with web developers. You don't have to do it yourself. So I've taken on the journey of working with Australia Post, and I travel the country teaching SEO. on-page, off-page SEO, social media marketing. I've learnt about social media influencing, which just fascinates me to this day. But the women that come to the workshop are really surprised when I get up the front and I start talking about SEO. And they'll often ask me, how did you end up doing that? You don't look like the SEO type. And I think, what is the SEO type? So as much as we want to break that stigma, even amongst ourselves, that stigma is still there. And that's something that programs and events like this really breaks those molds. Women are designing the digital future of our leading industries. They really are, because of this gap. Exactly because of this gap. So women are now stepping into the digital space and are creating amazing things. When you think of innovation, what do you think of? When I ask groups of people at workshops, they often think, oh, it's the tech space, right? Because technology is our greatest innovation that we've had in recent history. But innovation isn't just technology. People can often mistake innovation for just being something new, something that didn't exist before, but it exists now, and it's really cool, which is innovation. But innovation is more than that. Apart from being the argument of a novelty, innovation is having something that already exists and making it better, making it cost-effective, making it more efficient, making it faster, making it impact or reach more people, or do things in a way that's just a little bit different that improves our life. That's innovation. We're seeing some women come up with apps. I now have an app that solves such an amazing problem that has never existed before until we've seen the movement of women in technology. I have an app for my children's kinder. Now, when we go into kinder and you spend the next 5 minutes looking for your child's name on all of the pigeonhole pockets to retrieve your daily, paper of information of what's going on, we now have an app. And this app is amazing because it gives me a calendar of the art shows, of book week, of crazy hair day. It gives me a checklist of everything that I need to do for kinder to avoid that uncomfortable phone call that I haven't submitted a form. It gives me push notifications for reminders. I brought the weather with me, by the way, but that we need sunblock and hats. Now, for me, being a busy mum and feeling guilty when, we're all familiar with mum guilt, but feeling guilty for missing a day at kinder, I no longer. Now, the woman who developed that app had the exact same problem as me. And like we spoke about before, every single business is solving somebody's problem. Now, hands up in the room who's got a lot of problems. No, that was a joke. I love that Jeff's hand was up first. So these are just recent innovations in apps. These are very recent. The world is our oyster. When we talk to the startups and they come up with these amazing business ideas, we say, don't go solution shopping, go problem shopping. Because the more that we understand our problems, the more we're able to offer a solution, which is what I did with my first tech startup. Not only does diversity need to be in technology in terms of women, it needs to be across the whole board. So for me, as an accountant, finding an app like Receipt Bank was a high enough experience that I felt that I almost touched the hand of God, because shoebox accounting is one of the worst things that you can imagine being an accountant. Do you know, when I say shoebox accounting, do you know what I'm referring to? You know the shoebox that's full of all the receipts that you go, thank God, and you give your accountant? We don't like those. So we've developed an app. And we've got an app that you can take a screenshot, I take too many screenshots obviously, take a photo of your receipt and it picks up the information, it picks up the price, it picks up the date, it picks up everything, and you can store that. Then you can integrate it into your accounting software. And for me, I know most of you in the room aren't excited, but that was a very exciting experience for me. So we're solving problems across the board, not just in diversity of gender, but diversity in industries. With my own app, I developed an app called the Dating Wingman. And back when, a few years ago, when we created it, it was going to cost me $23,000. We've spoken about this earlier, and I'm bringing it up because you seem to be interested, so I'm hoping everybody else is that we thought that that was a lot of money, $23,000 for a free app. Where is my return on investment? Yes, we'll have some in-app purchases, which unlocks, different parts of the app, but is that marketing tool, is that, the app tool going to give me a return on investment? And boy, was I pleasantly surprised. Because when we did the figures of the 99 cents and the $1.99, our break-even analysis, we needed to get a lot of people with those in-app purchases. So what we did is we collaborated with an app company, and the app company made the app for free. See, negotiation, right there. And they took a percentage of the business and we developed the app. And it was such a learning experience for me in the way that that space works. We had some wins and we had some losses. For me, the marketing tool, I never imagined from developing an app would put me in the places that it put me. So I started writing for Clio, for Cosmo, Sydney Morning Herald. I became the relationship expert on The Project, on Channel 10's The Project. I became the relationship expert on Bay, which has now led me into becoming a co-host of the drive show, The Catch Up. So that small little risk in putting my faith into something forward-thinking that wasn't out there, that was in a space that I didn't really know about, which was evident, really paid off for me. And I'm going to say that in 2011, our app came equal second ahead of Tinder in the International iDate Awards. So understanding somebody's problem and being able to provide them with a solution that generally it would be an interpersonal solution, we were able to translate into the digital space. And it was an amazing punt. And we want more women in business to be able to take that punt. Spring racing, so I'm in the punt terminology. How do we inspire more women into technology? Technology is unleashing role model superheroes. You only kind of need to open this book to see that. When we talk about looking for people to relate to, these are the ladies that are drawing people into the space. It's events like these that the next generation of women who are looking to do something look at these women and think, if she can do it, I can do it. Right? We look for somebody to relate to. We were chatting earlier when I was in Vienna, in Austria, and walking in the airport, and I hear an Australian accent, and I nearly broke my neck of excitement. Oh, my kind. Hi, where can I hear you? And then it was like automatically I liked them. Automatically I had more trust in that person because they were from Australia. They were from the Gold Coast, Sydney. But I was able to relate to them in a foreign country. We can go into town, into a different town. I relate to people who follow Hawthorn Football Club. Can I get an amen for the Hawk supporters? And you inherently will develop a relationship with them immediately because we can relate to them. These ladies you can relate to. The lady who created the app for our kinder, we can relate to. I had a chat to ABC Radio Hobart earlier in the week, and I made the mistake of talking about role model superheroes. And Philip said to me, "So who's your role model?" And generally you expect to hear somebody who's on a big stage, somebody who's a household name, somebody who's done things on a large scale. But for me, my role models are those amazing women that come through our membership, the Geelong Women members. We've got women who have left really senior roles and have moved into business and are stretching their creative arm. We've got women who are doing social media marketing. We've got the social enterprise industry, tech with a purpose. They are the women who inspire me. They're the women who I can relate to. They're the women who get me up in the morning and think, I'm creating a platform, I'm connecting them, I'm empowering them, I'm educating them. They're creating it. The ripple effect is making a difference in the world. And for me, curiosity is what's going to really drive the entrance of women in technology. Being able to look at a woman who's done something amazing, big or small, and think, how did she do that? How did she get into that? She's not bad. I wonder. Curiosity will open that road. Now, that's up to that individual to choose whether or not that career path is for them, but we open the door. We put a welcome mat at the front and we open the door, and the curiosity drives them in. We want to win their hearts and their minds. But hearts come before minds in that saying for a reason. We want them to fall in love with the art before the science. Because the art of technology is not just the digital space, because we don't all carry around in our great analogy, because I don't have a pocket, a mini computer in our pocket every day and say we don't know anything about technology. We live and breathe it. It is our future. So we want to be a part of that future. We've got to empower the diversity within that future. So that becomes our responsibility. This becomes my responsibility, and this is why you may be able to tell I'm a little bit passionate about empowering women and empowering women into technology. It becomes your responsibility, it becomes you ladies' responsibility, it becomes the university's responsibility to be able to put on such events, to create these movements. And I have to say, I'm very, very, very pleased to be a part of it, and will continue to be a part of it. And thank you so much for listening to me for this short time. Thank you.
And I bring in my salary, and I have a team of PhD students and postdocs, and we do research. And in my case, it's genetics research. I basically read human genomes all day, pretty much every day, and I'm looking for genetic variation between people that underpins disease. So things like multiple sclerosis and some blinding eye conditions range themselves out. And I found myself at the very back. And I didn't expect to end up at the very back, but I was at the very back of the line. And I hadn't really thought about privilege or, how my pathway was influenced by those sorts of things. But it was questions like, did you ever have to get a job as a kid to help your parents pay the bills? Or did you ever, were you ever not sure about where a meal was coming from? And I don't think I had that rough a childhood, but in light of those questions and in other people's responses to them, possibly it was to some degree. Wasn't perfect, but neither of my parents were university educated. Nobody in my family had ever gone to university. All those sorts of things that we kind of take for granted. Well, I take for granted now. My partner and I both have PhD. My kids are geniuses, and it drives me nuts. It's terrifying. But, and I just assume they're going to go to university. They're not allowed to do PhDs, but they're going to go to university. But yeah, it made me rethink some of that stuff. So how did I end up where I am in the sense of the kind of privileged pathway stuff? When I was in grade 10, I had a a mentor in high school. It was a crazy man with a PhD who was an artist, and he decided to come and be a science teacher in our school to pay some of the bills. And he liked blowing things up, so, you know, teaching year 11 and 12 science was fantastic. And we loved it because we got to blow things up. But he took me aside and he said, look, you've got the grades for it, you really should go to uni. And I'd never even considered, you know, did not have uni on my radar at all. I had a job at the cement factory and I was going to keep working at the cement factory. And he kept pushing me for the next 2 years. He, you know, through 11 and 12, through the subjects that I picked, he was persistent about it. He helped me pick colleges and do the applications and, you know, kind of, I was in Devonport. We never even went to Hobart. That was miles away. And I did it. And I got into medicine in Melbourne, and I got into a range of things in Hobart, and I decided to spite my parents I was going to go to Hobart because they never went, and, you know, I could be further away. The rest of my family were in Melbourne. And so I did. I went to uni and I started on this path, and I never looked back. Not at all. And, you know, still going that way. So, in terms of the downstream stuff after the degree, blah blah blah, how did I end up quite so deep in technology? I wanted to analyse this family. So this is one of my glaucoma families. I don't know if you've seen pedigree drawings before, but circles are females, squares are males, and these are the connections. So in this case, 2 parents, 4 children. Colour scale there is one of the eye measures that we're looking at. So I have sequencing information on all of these people, and I wanted to find out how genetic variation was tracking through this family and whether it was influenced in disease. Turns out that if you want to do that, you need this. That is a massive computational problem. It's huge. So every genome sequence that I get from a person is between 500 gig to 2 terabytes of data. And to process it, it all has to be read into memory. It has to be, it's crazy. It's a massive, massive computational problem. And I'm not just comparing one-to-one, I'm actually tracking information through. So we're running through all the possible probabilities here. Yeah, it's difficult. It also turns out that I am terrible at lab work. I hate being in the lab. No, it's not true. I'm really good at lab work, but I hate it. I never stuffed anything up. All my experiments were perfect, but it drove me nuts. And to get through my PhD, I had to generate all my own data first. So I got through the 2 years or whatever it was of painstakingly running the same PCR over and over again and pouring gels and whatever else until I finally had enough data on the computer that I could just crunch it and crunch away. And that's where the passion kicked in, and I found my feet and I just thrived. I absolutely loved it, and yeah, that was the moment. So I'm not very good at the whole take-home message thing because I think I'm still working out, you know, how it all works and what the take-homes are. But in terms of my experiences, I can't really talk about women in technology because I don't know what it's like to be a bloke in technology. But in terms of me as a person in technology, work-life balance has been really, really important, and I'm really lucky that I'm in a position now where my hours are relatively flexible and, you know, I can work around some of that stuff. Lots of that changed when I had kids. You know, it's kind of cliche to say it, but we were in Texas at the time. My first child was born, and I suddenly noticed the American school systems. I noticed that children had to walk through metal detectors to get into primary school, and I thought, you know what, I'm not staying here with my children anymore. We're moving back to Tassie. Things like that make a big impact. So it was the perfect place to work. It was the absolute pinnacle of the kind of statistical genetics that I was doing. But I couldn't stay there because it did not fit with what how I wanted my children to be raised and the lifestyle. Travel for me is really important. So part of my job involves lots of travel, and that's a definite plus, and it keeps me, when things start to tank off and I think, oh, I'm not sure I should stay in this field anymore, then another conference in Japan comes up and it's like, yeah, okay, maybe I will stay. And managing stress has been really important as well, and that's a constant factor in me deciding, am I staying here or am I going to try something else? But it's important to think about those 3 things, I think. In my case, I've got a kind of balancing act between short-term contracts and a stable career. So I chose the path of short-term contracts, which is an awful path to take. But it's the only way to do the kind of science that I want to do. So I, have to deal with that one. But it's, the jobs with the stable contracts do hang over me, and occasionally I think, oh, maybe I'll go to the dark side of industry just for a little while. It's really important to work for and with people you respect. No, it doesn't matter what field you're in, but that will get you through if the people that you're under or the people that you're working next to are people you respect. It has a massive impact on how you survive in the workforce. And do what you love. Love what you do and do what you love. It sounds again cliched, but it'll get you through. It means that you go home at the end of the day and say, this incredible thing happened, and then you try and explain it to someone and they're like, okay, good. And the take-home message for any of these things that I do is that everybody needs to do maths and do more maths. And if you think you're doing enough maths, you're not. Do more maths. You didn't realise that. I mean, I did massive amounts of maths, but it wasn't enough. So travel is good.
Wow, I feel pretty privileged to speak after these two, because that was pretty amazing. So I'm just going to put myself in the same category, okay? Pay no attention to my presentation, but let's all just go now, shall we? But no, it really is a fantastic opportunity to be here tonight. And the first thing I want to do is say welcome, and remember to keep the microphone near my mouth, but welcome, because it's fantastic to see the number that we do have here tonight, because what these events do is raise awareness, critical awareness on the value, diversity and strength that women bring to the workforce, and not just the workforce, but to the discipline of technology and the varying fields that's applied. And it is so important because for years there have been so many efforts placed in trying to attract young girls to join STEM-led careers or study. And there is no right answer for that yet. We're still not winning in that space. And these types of events are what drives greater progress, I would say, in that space. And it's funny, I was actually at the Theta conference in New Zealand in May, and that's the higher education technology agenda. And I was privileged to hear from some amazing people, but two women in particular stood out. And one of them was Michelle Dickinson, and that's her up there. And she's based in New Zealand, in Auckland. She's a nanotechnologist. She's an engineer by trade and a senior lecturer at the University of Auckland in engineering. She's also an educator, and she spends a huge amount of time working with young children, introducing them to science and the wonders of technology and all of that. So she was telling us a story at the conference about how she was at an expo and she saw a young girl walk past with her mum, and she looked at what was going on, these little tech setups that Michelle had, and she's like, wow, Mum, look at that. And her mother turned around and said to her, don't worry about that. That's not what girls do. That's not what girls do. And they continued walking. And that is the point that Michelle went, wow, we've got this so wrong. Because all this time we've been spending so much attention working with our young girls, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. What we're saying though is that we missed a key opportunity, that it is the grown women who have been brought up with this stereotype that is not what women do, that we need to work with. So at that point, she started hosting these types of events, working with the mothers of the young girls to communicate to them the possibilities, the wonders, the opportunity that are there and waiting for our young women, but they too have to believe it because they're the role models of these young girls. Another woman that we heard from is Anita Scholl-Breed. Now, this woman too is amazing. She's based in Norway, CEO of her own company called Iris.ai, and she's basically researching artificial intelligence and deep machine learning, and she works with a team of people based all over the globe. They were part of, what's that university in Silicon Valley? Is it Significant University, I think it's called? No, like it's literally part of Silicon Valley, where it's like a big think tank. And they come together working on, solving, complex and big problems. And the thing that these two women had in common, and I do encourage you to look these women up because their stories are they're just mind-boggling and amazing. But they thought big. They weren't afraid to overstep stereotypes, believe in themselves and chase their dreams. And they knew that they were capable of big things. And they are the very epitome of totally overthrowing stereotypes and saying, you know what, I'm just going to succeed anyway. And that's the exact message that we need to be sending to our women. So the most important thing I would say from here is that we need to continue to get together, support one another, make sure that we enable our women today in the workforce today to be as powerful and as successful as they can be. Because as I say, you guys in this room are the role model to our young women, and not just young women, but our young men as well, where we can break down that stereotype that technology or STEM-led disciplines are a field for men only. Because by watching you guys, that's what they're doing, and if they can see women who are successful in this space, it removes the taboo that it's not something that women do. So thank you once again for coming, fantastic effort, and thank you to the girls of the Office of the CIO who have put this together. No mean feat amongst busy schedules. It's wonderful to have this opportunity to get together, so thank you.
So, thank you very much for listening. Now we have the panel. So this is a time where you get to interact with our wonderful women that we have had presenting, including Marianne. And Marianne's on the panel. Marianne works with us. And it's really cool to have Marianne here. She worked near Google when they were in a garage, or was that Apple? No, she was really worked down the road from Google when they were a tiny company and weren't even in a business the way we know them today. So it's pretty cool to have Marianne on our team. She manages the 24 projects we have on the go at the moment. So Samantha, Jack, Marianne and Janelle are going to come forward. I'll control this for just a little while until you guys get it back from me, because you've all done so well with it. So questions for our panel and our women. Very different perspectives there. I hope it's fueled some questions from you. Otherwise, I have got a few here to get the juices flowing. But who has a question?
Really glad that this event was put on. My question is sort of around, I know growing up when I was in Year 10 and even up until now, and all the women I speak to, they find a hard time making decisions or knowing which direction to go or what to choose. My question is around, what advice would you give in terms of, you're all very successful, you've gotten to somewhere, what advice would you give in terms of making decisions and, who to talk to, what to do, what were your choices along the way?
It's something that I struggle with when you're in VCE, you're in Year 10, Year 11 and Year 12, and then you're under the most incredible pressure of exams, and then you've got people looking at you saying, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Come on, just let me get through the exams and can't I think about it later? And you can't. It is such a stressful and pivotal, who learnt that word? Can someone help me with that one? Point in their development. Now, the fear of getting it wrong can cripple any decision they make. So the reward has to mitigate that risk of getting it wrong. For me, I started a business at 17 and it became national within the first 3 years. And I managed to get my uni degree done in 2 years. So I did summer school, winter school, night school, and just churned through it. Because I had such a fear that if I didn't go into the field that my family encouraged me to go into, which was accounting, that I would be stuck. And it turns out that I was right and they were wrong. Listen to your gut. So the modelling agency still exists to this day. and it's done amazing things for me, but I'm no longer in accounting. What school and what university has taught me, it's taught me how to learn, and it's taught me how to fail. So I don't particularly glorify failure like a lot of motivational speakers do, but I think learning how to do it wrong or make wrong decisions and learn from them is a skill that you need. Now, in order to develop that skill, you're going to have to make some wrong decisions. The limbic part of our brain that we use the emotional decision-making part doesn't have the language ability. So in order for us to find something that emotionally drives us, that we love, that we're passionate about, we usually can't put into words, right? So what I would encourage would be to take advantage of internship opportunities, right? I did work experience, internships. I went and learned the things that I did like and the things that I didn't like, and I wasn't afraid to get it wrong. So I left accounting in my late 20s, and it was something that I didn't regret and I take a lot from, but was happy to move away from. So I think that if we can alleviate that pressure, who regrets giving me the microphone?
No.
I got told today that we've found someone that speaks more than Janelle.
Yeah.
And her name is Samantha. I think it's our responsibility to alleviate that pressure of those decision makings and just support the decisions that they choose, that age and what they're heading into, what they choose to do. Does anyone want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. I'd say a couple of things. Don't be afraid to change your mind. That, you know, you can actually be agile, and, you know, you could get 3 or 4 years down a training path and go, you know what, no. But those skills will still be relevant to something. So that's not too much of a problem. I think it's really important to show kids what the possibilities are, and I think that's what was lacking for me until later in my pathway, was that I'd done one of those, we had the computer test that spat out what you were supposed to be, and one of them was insurance and one of them was something else completely awful. And at that point I went, you know what, I don't want to be anything. I want to be a dragon. This is just meh. So I didn't know what the possibilities were. I had no idea of what was actually out there, and it wasn't until someone encouraged me to say, you could be this, you could be this, you know, there's all these options, and to do those things you need to have these building blocks, that made a huge difference, rather than being told you should do this because you're really good at it. If you're good at it, doesn't mean you love it. And there was something else I was going to say, and I can't remember what it was. So, do you want to add?
Go for your life, Marianne.
I was just going to say that I was one of those unique people in life that knew exactly what I wanted to do from the age of 10, and it has never deviated, and I've never achieved it. But
You did. It's in the book.
It's in the book.
How many languages? 6 languages.
But I knew that I wanted to be a UN translator and spend my life speaking foreign languages. I never had much of an interest in computers. The only thing I thought was fun about it was that I was a fast typist, so I was rather good at typing my friends' reports in university and things like that. And it was sort of through happenstance that I fell into IT. So I really think it doesn't matter what you study in university, as long as you're getting an education and you're doing what you love and you embrace it. And it's always going to set you up with skills for life. That was all.
Well done. Yeah, Marianne, I love the quote. Read the book, there's some beauties. Marianne went and worked for Microsoft, I think it was, with your 6 languages. Pardon? Citibank. And they said it's okay, it's easy to teach Marianne the technical skills. The 6 languages she knows are much harder to learn. So that was really cool. So more questions. There's some interesting insights, yeah.
Thanks very much. The conversation's been great so far. Just a question to take a bit more leverage from what you were talking about, Jack. Rural and remote communities are something that I have some experience with, and I've found in the past that careers advisors tend to have acquired that job because they had more jobs than anybody else. So how do you suggest that as regional and rural communities tend to find that they're losing more and more services, how we actually encourage people in those pivotal years to actually get to those influences to actually make decisions that might end up leading them on a different pathway?
can only speak from my own experience because I'm not trained in that area at all. But there was a moment for me which, if it had happened much earlier, would have been fantastic. So when I was in grade 12, a group of people from UTAS came to school to talk to us about, you know, possibilities of being at university, and because we were finishing grade 12 and, you know, that was obviously the next step. If they'd come when I was in grade 9 or 10, when I was actually making the choices for the subjects that I was going to take on for the next couple of years and plotting out that career path, that would have been so much more useful. And I don't know how much of that UTAS is actually doing now, but getting in early, and even if you go every year and just do a day where you reiterate the kind of things that you can do with a university degree, and these are the subjects that you need to get there. Lots of these kids don't have any, they don't have parents who took that path. They don't, they think that they have to leave at year 10 and take a trade. That's what we were told. You finish at the end of year 10 and you take a trade. And it's not necessarily the case. And you can still take a trade, but you can take a trade after you go to uni. There's all sorts of things you can do.
But I'm really interested also, Jack, around the soft money jobs, so the short-term contracts. Are things actually getting better?
Okay, so I'll go first. Look, from my perspective, I've been really fortunate and felt extremely supported by Jeff. He's always presented multiple options, and this is serious. This is for real, not just because my boss is standing next to me. No, I've always felt very supported. There were options on the table as to how I would like to return to work, whether that was a part-time, full-time capacity, and how we could make that work. I take every second Friday off as additional leave, and Jeff's always been very supportive of that. And not just Jeff, but it really comes down to the rest of the team and the culture throughout IT, because there has to be some support and flexibility to allow me to do that as well. Or, if we need to pop out and go to a doctor's appointment, all of those types of things are really necessary when you're trying to juggle a family, and most of the people in here get that. But I've never ever felt that that's been a hindrance for me, and I think that goes to speak quite highly of the culture that certainly for me in IT. Jack?
So I'll try and answer both of those. So in terms of women in my field, we actually go the other way. So in terms of health, we have way more women than men in most of our levels until you get up to senior positions, in which case that's when it starts to really drop off. My team is almost all female. I hired a postdoc recently and I had to hire a bloke because we didn't have any. If I'm going to be, good about this gender stuff, I actually need a man. So in that sense, that's really, really good and really positive. And in terms of workplace flexibility, and the university's fantastic for that stuff. I have no issues with any of the way that's progressing. The soft money, I can only speak from the medical research side, where the government is shrinking the pool of what we can apply for. It's definitely getting worse, and I don't really have anything positive to say about that. And I think that's partly why we do lose women in those senior positions, because they realise quite how ridiculous it is and jump ship to something that's more stable, whereas the men kind of stick it out. So I don't know. It's definitely the worst part of the environment that I work in. It's far more stressful than any other part of my working life, but it's got nothing to do with gender.
It's a fundamental Australian problem. I mean, European researchers don't suffer this. It's the way we fund research in Australia, if we can. So we've got another topic for another night.
Even though the return on investment is like 5 or 6 times for every dollar.
Yeah, research is a difficult one. Good question, Dave. Yeah, another question. Yeah. So we're a little over time, but I don't want to dry up the questions. We'll stay as long as you want to talk to our panel.
I have a comment more than a question. I fell into music technology just by mistake, happenstance. And through that process, I went to the Conservatorium of Music, not a musician. I don't sing, I don't play an instrument. But I have a recording studio for women, for females. And undertaking that, I found out that through my research, because my background is business and finance, that 95% of the world's sound engineers are men. Hence, the sounds, the music that we're hearing is male dominated. Videos, radio, music, television, every stream is driven by dominance in the male population. So I have high school girls. I have about 23 on the books that come and learn music technology in a professional recording studio. I've noticed that the Conservatorium of Music, since I started this venture maybe 3 years ago, are now targeting young girls at high school, 10th, 9th, 10th grade, which is wonderful to see because I target them as well. So coming from two different directions, from a foundation and from a school, the university. This conversation is really enlightening to see technology, women in technology is a real bonus. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. Well, thank you for that comment. Anything we can do to help, we'd love to get in touch as well. We'll be holding more of these, and if you want to come along and put that forward at the next one, we'd be delighted to have you. So I'll bring this to a close now, unfortunately. I know we're all having fun. But we put this on to get more women in tech courses. We wanted more women in tech courses because if we manage that, and we want them here at the university, getting degrees in technology, and we want you to spread that word because we need more women in ITS. My goal, maybe, is to perhaps get 50% female and 50% male when I leave. We're sitting around the industry average at 19% now. It's improved a little bit. It's hard work. We just put 7 project managers on this week. One's a female. It's pretty hard to get equality in those kind of recruitment stats, but we're going to work. We are an equal opportunity employer and we won't breach any rules, but we have found fantastic results by improving the diversity in areas. And Tim did it last year. You grew diversity in your team November 2015 by around a quarter, I think. So Tim alone improved his stats up to a quarter, which is 6% ahead of the rest of the department. I think it's paying dividends in what we're achieving there. Right now we have more projects on than we've ever had before. We have 24 projects under management right now, which is a huge amount for us. So we hope this is heading towards that. Just a few takeaways from tonight for me. I love that term, the human virus for technology. The service desk, I certainly think, will identify with that. Why women in business, why not people? And that's been put to me several times. I think really if we listened here, we can see why that's important. And when we know the statistics, that's why it's important. But also on the statistics, we're well underrepresented with disability. We do okay on the non-English speaking backgrounds. We sit around 30% like most industries do, which is what they are in the population. So in technology, with the cultural diversity, we do okay, which is interesting. But on disability, we're appalling. We have one worker with a disability that reports disabled, and that's behind the industry average. So the next one of these events we're going to call Techability, and we'll be doing some new things in that space. But who doesn't want to employ someone who has good negotiation, creativity, patience, multitasking, organisation, and is good at hiding vegetables in the food? You know, if that's not enough reason as to why we do this, then nothing else is. And like a boss, get someone else to do it. And I did that, and Janelle's already thanked Joe and Gillian for putting this together. You've done a fantastic job. They not only put this together, but the book. And the book is important to us. We wanted to launch it here tonight, and I've read every story and I love the quotes in there, and there's many, and none are better than others, but I love that one from Doris. When someone says it can't be done, that's when I start having fun. Well done, Doris. That's been terrific. And again, thank you to Joe and Gillian for getting this done. I like to get some colour on the wall, and we'll try and do that. Our walls are pretty grey, I think, mostly. SEO, does everyone know what an SEO is? Okay, it's search engine optimization. And, you know, I think Samantha talked about that barrier into technology around the language and how great we are at coming up with acronyms and making it sound a lot harder than it really is. And I think our panellists and speakers tonight helped you understand that it isn't as daunting as it seems. And I'm certainly looking forward to going problem shopping, ladies. A day in my life, you don't actually have to go problem shopping. But yeah, 6 billion letters in the genome, and we're all 0.1% different. I think you'd agree with me. Our speakers and the ladies who put this together are more than 0.1% different. They're outstanding. And that great story, Jack, from Brendan Shaw College in Devonport to the Texas Biomedical Research Institute, I think you really did take the right walk, and we're glad you walked. And, you know, the importance of role models came through, and what role models you all are. So thank you for that. And the internship opportunities, that's an idea, and I'm thinking it's something we'll certainly talk to HR in ITS here at UTAS around some internships. We want this to flow on now and start bringing our students into our team because we're educating them. Why can't we have the best pick? So just lastly, the ripple effect. We hope we created a ripple tonight. Thank you for your contributions. They were outstanding. And thank you all for coming along. And we'll look forward to seeing you at our next one of these in May. Techability, I don't know if that'll be the name, and then we'll hold this again next year. So thank you.